They'll be calling you a radical. So, as you know, Google's changed for kids or not for kids. So let's be Mr. Rogers today, which, by the way, I'll tell a little story about Mr. Rogers. So, all right, kids, this is Fukushima for kids. So, it's come out now. Japan says 20 million oysters have collapsed. The oyster industry, the pearl industry has collapsed. Oh no, God forbid. You can't get Japanese pearls. So, anchovies collapsed, sardines collapsed, tide pools dead at your feet, salmon have collapsed, all post Fukushima. It's all coincidence, kids. So now they're saying, I'll tag the word, perplexed, mystified, alarmed, baffled, bewildered, curious, stumped, alarmed, don't know. They've run out of them. This is all, for every one of these, not science, kids. So stay with me, kids. So I was given 2 months to live 8 years ago right there in that room. Told me I'd be dead by Christmas. Santa Claus is not coming this year. So, okay, kids, because now parents can't be parents with their children. It's like I was listening to KSL, Doug Wright, that terrorist, was talking, and he was saying, it's ridiculous. People are watching YouTube for 7 hours a day. I'm like, you pathetic. Come on, this is for kids. I know people that listen to your hate speech on the radio for 10, 15 hours a day. But he says they need to turn off the internet. Why don't they turn off KSL? Fox News. I know people that sit around and yell at the TV and go back and forth from CNN Fox, but watch it for 10, 15 hours. They'll listen to Sean Hannity or Alex Jones for 10, 15 hours a day. Oh, sick. Okay, kids, so here's what happened. They decided the government was owned by the nuclear energy industry. I call it the nuclear organized crime, which we have federal RICO. That's against the law, but not with the nuclear industry. They opened the Manhattan Project. Why? Because there's where all the money is, government money. Nuclear reactors are not for making nuclear energy. Nuclear reactors for making people rich, kids. They're for making kids rich and killing our ecology. Because why? The waste that comes from a nuclear reactor, they make nuclear bombs out of. And they sell it back to the government. It's called Price-Anderson, which is a congressional act that was passed. There's no liability. They can cheat and rob and steal and do whatever they want. Just like when you get in trouble, all the things you learn in kindergarten, kids, not with them. Don't cheat. Be nice. The golden rule does not apply to them, kids. The golden rule does not apply to them. They do whatever they want. They mass murder, cheat, steal, rob, pillage. And it's legal for them. So Obama inside the Situation Room, that's where they all gather and make decisions. He had the CEO of General Electric. What's a CEO? He's the president of a company who makes nuclear industries. He had the military, the Army, Navy, Marines. It's called the Joint Chief of Staffs. They all decide. Then he has a science and technology guy named John Holdren. He wrote his PhD on eugenics. What's eugenics? That's population control, kids. So they made the decision to send in the USS Reagan. Make it so, they said, because they'd been watching Star Trek. Make it so, they said, kids. So make it so, knowingly radiated. Now, Madame Curie was a scientist, Marie Curie, who said that radiation doesn't hurt you. And as time went on, she kept messing around with it, proving that it didn't hurt you, and she died of cancer. Young. Radiation causes cancer, kids. Nuclear fallout. Nuclear fallout reactor causes... Well, radiation's a big, broad term, kids. We don't even know exactly what it means. Radiation's a big term. It radiates. That's what the sun does. So at Livermore, California, via the Manhattan Project, we have nuclear labs. Los Alamos, Livermore, Idaho National Lab. They get billions just thrown to them. And private companies like NuScale have bled in. Government and nuclear industry are the same industry together. That's called fascism, kids, which is against the law. But again, the nuclear industry, there is no laws for them. There's no laws. We call them the untouchables. There are no laws for the nuclear industry. None. They do whatever they want. So Fukushima, these reactors have a core. The reactor was built by GE and Wattis Construction, Weber State University, who's built up by them, Utah Construction. They cheated. Knowingly cheated. So there's been a lawsuit filed in San Diego, but it never goes forward because, again, the nuclear industry is the untouchables. They do whatever they want, kids. So Bert and Ernie, maybe we can get the Cookie Monster in here. So Mr. Rogers on NPR. Gwen Eiffel died very young of this disease. Oh, is that NPR? No, that's PBS. Mr. Rogers on NPR. Fred Rogers. To Diane Reeves. Well, how you doing, Mr. Rogers? Well, not so good. Mr. Rogers isn't doing so good. Well, what's the matter, Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers has a stomach ache. Mr. Rogers has a stomach ache? Well, that's not good. Are you okay to go? Yeah, we'll do the interview. He did the whole interview. I just been to the doctor. He didn't tell anybody he'd been to the doctor that morning and been diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, and he told him he was going to die. He still did the interview. Now remember, he was grassroots. He did his work organically, kids. But people like me, grassroots, organically, the own government, they hire PR firms to attack and slander. Again, against the law, kids. But again, the nuclear industry can do whatever. I was in critical condition while I did all this work. Given 2 months to live with AML, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, right there in that room in 2011. Those are felonies in all 50 states to attack somebody, but not the nuclear industry. They can use your own money to attack grassroots activists. That's what they do, kids. So they made the decision to cover up Fukushima because they didn't want to scare the peasants. Who are the peasants? They're all us, except for, these oligarchs who think they're above it, which they're not. So Obama and gang, a guy named head of the NRC, the Nicaragua Committee, his name was Gregory Jacko. He's supposed to protect us. He cowered down and started to cry because he was afraid. You know how the little kids, the 2-year-olds and the preschoolers, how sometimes they get a little scared, you kindergartens. We're big kids now. We're 3 and 4, right? But the 3-year-olds and the 2-year-olds, sometimes they cry. He started to cry like that. He got afraid, and he cowered down, so he couldn't do his job. So John Holden made the choices, and a guy named Cartwright, he called himself Hoss, because he was head of the United States Marines, and he likes to radiate his own men, and he likes to watch Bonanza, which is an old sitcom made-up TV show from the 60s. So he likes to watch Star Trek. So he called himself Hoss, and he said, make it so. Go ahead, radiate your own men. Give them cancer. So they covered it up. Then they did what they call classified Fukushima. What's that? The government has the Patriot Act, which is really the opposite, is the Unpatriot Act, to control media, to control information, because they don't want to scare the 75-year-old little 3-year-olds. They don't want them afraid, because they'll get panicked and their knees will knock, and just let them die 30 or 40 years young of cancer. Let all the animals. So after they just decided to push water on it, the earthquake shook, the cores cracked, they went into meltdown, they all blew up, the spent fuel pools blew up, they just covered it up. The media went along with it because they were paid and told to, I guess, kids, because they were like the little 2-year-olds. They got afraid too, but then the nuclear industry paid them. And so they faked media stories, they faked all kinds of stuff. Little kids. So they covered it up. So now a guy named Abe, who's the prime minister, which is like a president of Japan, which we fought Japan in World War II because they attacked U.S. soil, called Pearl Harbor, kids. So we took them down. And the president then was a guy named Franklin Roosevelt. He said, no more monarchs. Japan become the United States, Yalta by the sea. They decided to divide, or the United States took Japan. So Japan is the United States. So all the decisions made in Japan are the United States. 1945, Franklin Roosevelt and a guy named Stalin. Who was who? He was president of the Soviet Union, which is Russia. They won World War II, beat the Germans, who most of these scientists invented nuclear fallout. There was a guy named Einstein. He broke ranks and come over and he said that he didn't want any of these nuclear reactors. He called it a heck of a way to boil water, kids. So, Jeff Bezos' father was one of those guys. Los Alamos, Livermore, they say bringing star power to Earth. It created a plasma, so they decided to push it into the Pacific Ocean. Now, kids, we have what we call the eco chain. So they pushed this energy, blew it up and covered up. They dumped fresh water on it. Well, first salt water, and they pushed it in the Pacific Ocean for 3,200 days. A heat source of meltdowns, 3 of them, and then spent fuel pools. We have what we call MOX fuel, which they throw oxygen to it to make the spent fuel even stronger, to make bombs, to scare people, to threaten people, to make people rich. Nuclear reactors are not owned by government. They're owned by private companies. And they force the government at gunpoint. Oh, sorry. I don't want to afraid you kids. They force them at water gunpoint to buy them. So for a Japanese PM to come to the United States, they never come here. They never come here because we dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan. Truman did that. I will quote the great president. Well, it wasn't great. A lot of people don't like him. His name is Herbert Hoover. He said after the bomb, when Truman dropped it, because Franklin Roosevelt died, he said, kids, to indiscretionally kill women and children revolts my soul. So they dropped 2 bombs and it vaporized, literally, kids, plug your ears right here, vaporized hundreds of thousands of people and killed burned them. And they died. We're all going to die, sometime, but they died just instantly. So no Japanese PM. So now since Trump's been here, this Japanese PM's been here 18 times, and him and Trump are best friends. Abe went to the media lab, MIT media. There was a kid named Aaron Swartz who was trying to expose all this. The government arrested him, put him in jail for telling the truth. He ended up, unfortunately, he's not with us, children. This Heyman and Ortiz, which were for the bomb. So the handoff between President Obama and President Trump, with Abe runs the country. He's the prime minister 18 times. First one in the White House, first one after the inauguration. They're best bosom buddies, Trump and Abe. And they want more nuclear energy. So now all the fishies in the sea have died. All the little starfish have died. And scientists are mystified, they're puzzled, they're baffled, they're stumped, they're perplexed, they're curious. Because they bow to the nuclear industry because they buy them off and give them money to say that. Because they don't care about you kiddies. They don't care. They're just fine with you kiddies being dead. We have an acute leukemia cancer outbreak in children right here. Adult cancer. But they don't care about you kids. They hate you, actually. They hate you, kids. So now everything's collapsed, acutely collapsed. Kevin Blanche, I got cancer. I walked the whole coast of California trying to expose and prove this, kids. And they attacked me. I had open heart surgery. My own government attacked me. Didn't give me any money. I paid a lot in taxes. They have what they call Medicaid. A guy named Mike Lee kicked me off Medicaid while I was in a bone marrow transplant. So I've had to do this grassrootly, organically, with private funding because my government wants me dead. Because my government, left or right, Democrat or Republican, we have 2 parties. They're both the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate is the only political party here, kids. So it's been a cover-up, and they want us all dead. They've collapsed the Pacific Ocean, and all scientists who are not scientists. That's not science, right, kids? First you have to pots of knowledge, then I'm Kevin Blanche. I'm the only real scientist. Okay, kids, maybe we can get Bert and Ernie on here. Maybe we can be the next Fred Rogers. I'll do one of these in my house, and I'll get my, Mr. Rogers gear on. Because Google says we need to tell you if these videos are for kids because parents can't manage their children. And they watch too much YouTube. But parents watch Fox News 12 hours a day and become indoctrinated like fainting freaking goats. So who's the children? Stand tuned.